please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hello and welcome to Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar and with me is Sonia Shenoy. Sonia, good afternoon. A good day of trade today after the kind of pressure that the markets were seeing because of various news flows coming in, especially from the banking sector. Today is clearly a day of relief rally for the markets. Over 1% up on the key indices, and look at Bank Nifty. That is the one also leading the charge today, up almost 1% as we speak. But mid-caps are the ones who are taking the breather after a good amount of action that was seen in the green yesterday. So Bank Nifty is the one to focus on. Lots of news coming in from the banking space. But remember that trends have reversed exactly opposite for ICICI Bank, SBI, as well as Axis Bank, which were under pressure yesterday, but today are showing great amount of momentum and gains as well, Sonia.
Yes, in fact, it's a really good day, as you pointed out. Not just banks, metals are shining in trade today. So all your stocks, be it something like a Vedanta, Hindalco, all up about 3 to 4% apiece. And in the broader markets, it's actually under pressure. So names like Jet Airways, etc., are all down about 4-5%. By the way, some more news. This PNB Fraud is something that we're going to speak about for the next many days, and the ED sources say that the PNB fraud is much bigger than 11,000 crores. So we're going to talk about that in greater detail. The stocks have been under a lot of pressure, not just PNB. In fact, the entire jewelry basket, not just Gitanjali Gems, which is of course at the center of this fraud, but a whole host of other jewelry companies are also under pressure today. PC Jewelers, etc., have all fallen about 4-5%. The Enforcement Directorate is likely to get in touch with some of these other banks as well, and they say that the PNB fraud is bigger than 11,000 crores. It's out to be, it's very simplistic to say that only one junior official was involved. I mean, loans which are, such a big ticket size like 11,000 crores don't get passed by a junior official. I'm sure there are many more seniors involved in such a big, in passing of such a big loan. So let's just, take a look at some of these stocks. PNB, of course, has been under pressure, still down almost about 6.5 to 7%, and volumes are much higher on PNB compared to the last many days. But okay, so in fact, Timsy, our colleague, is with us to tell us what the Enforcement Directorate sources have indicated to her. Timsy, over to you.
Yes, very clearly what I'm understanding from sources, ED sources to be precise as of now, is the fact that the bank fraud is getting even bigger. Apparently, there are other banks who are also involved in this, and ED is now soon likely to get in touch with these banks as well. Now, when we talk of what are these other banks, let me first go across through the details that I have on the other banks and how much quantum of money the other banks have also lent to Nirav Modi and his associates and the entire companies which are involved in this. Apart from PNB, Union Bank, SBI, Overseas Bank, Axis Bank, Allahabad Bank are involved. Union Bank apparently has lent around 2,300 crore rupees. Allahabad Bank lent around 2,000 crore rupees, and SBI gave 960 crore rupees. And ED is soon going to get in touch with these other banks and the bank officials, because ED has been asked to submit immediately a detailed status report to Finance Ministry and to PMO. Now, what I also pick up is the fact that ED initiated a detailed inquiry in this entire case this week. I beg your pardon. And unsecured loans were given to Nirav Modi and his associates. An entire network of shell companies is involved in this, and through which they concluded these fraudulent transactions. So ED is right now chasing and trying to uncover that entire network of shell companies which is involved. ED also feels that, the PNB bank officials were regularly communicating the details and the entire status of this to Nirav Modi and his associates, and PNB Bank essentially gave loans without any security, which actually led to this entire problem. And with the earlier officials retiring and the new official coming in place, the new official is the one, the whistleblower of this entire case, who got in touch with the headquarters of PNB and tried to uncover this entire thing. The fraud came to limelight when Nirav Modi failed to pay the last transaction, which was to the tune of 282 crores, which we are given to understand from ED sources right now. A detailed report is expected by the afternoon here in Delhi at the ED headquarters, after which ED is going to submit its view to PMO and to Finance Ministry. I'll keep you posted on it.
All right, MC, that's very, very important information that you're giving us, that 6 banks which are involved, and also the names of those banks. In fact, that's something that we have been hearing from our sources as well. And remember, Enforcement Directorate has really sprung into action in this particular case. So lots more is supposed to really come out by the end of the day. But Ritu Singh joins us. She has been getting much more details. What's the latest, Ritu, on this?
Well, while Timsy is talking about 6 banks' involvement in the scam itself, I think here what we're given to understand is that 6 banks had discounted or given money, credit to Nirav Modi and Gitanjali Gem's companies against the letters of undertaking issued by PNB officials. Of course, they were issued fraudulently, but the LOUs itself were genuine, and therefore credit was issued by these banks legitimately against these LOUs that were showed to them at their overseas branches. Of course, PNB officials themselves say that there was collusion between the officials of Nirav Modi company and Gitanjali Gem companies and the officers in the overseas branches of these Indian banks, but that is something that is yet to be established. So the 6 banks that we understand from sources that are involved are Allahabad Bank, Axis Bank, State Bank of India, Union Bank, Canara Bank, and Bank of India. These are the 6 banks. As far as the money that they have given to these companies against these LOUs is concerned, Union Bank has about 2,300 crore rupees, followed by State Bank about 960 crore rupees, Allahabad Bank hence over 2,000 to 2,200 crore rupees. There's also Bank of India and Canara Bank that have between 1,000 to 1,500 crores that they lent against this. Axis Bank about 2,000 crore rupees, but then we understand that all of that exposure that they had has been subsequently sold down. So now at this moment they have nothing. All of these banks are now claiming these dues from Punjab National Bank, which is the one that has to honor these dues, given that PNB was the one that gave the guarantee. So pressure is building on PNB, even as it's trying to shift the blame on other banks.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Ritu, for being on top of this from the word go. All these banks that we've referred to are down and out in trade. In fact, Allahabad Bank has slipped further. About 10 minutes ago, it was down about 2%. Now the bank is inching towards almost a 4% cut. Seems like this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's not looking so good for the market. In fact, although it's higher since the start of trade, the market has come off a little bit in the last 10-15 minutes, if you can see that, Nick. And the mid-cap index is slipping further into the red. All the PSU banks that were spoken about just a few minutes back are under a bit of pressure. But let's talk about some good numbers as well that came in. So something like a Nestle India has moved up higher today, posted a strong set of numbers that the company delivered. So 5% higher on Nestle India right now. And Endurance Technology, that's another auto ancillary company that supplies to makers like Bajaj, etc. Very good numbers. So Endurance Tech is now up almost about 5%, moving to the high point of trade. But let's talk about some macro data that came through as well. WPI inflation eased in the month of January to 2.84%. This is the second straight month that wholesale inflation has eased after touching an 8-month high in the month of November, helped by a softer rise in food and fuel prices. On a month-on-month basis, the food inflation came in at 1.64% versus 2.9%. However, November WPI inflation has been revised to 4.02% from 3.93% earlier. We spoke to Rupa Rege Nitsure, the chief economist of L&T Financial Services, and here's her view on WPI inflation.
Slightly above market expectations, but sequentially we had seen some hardening, in crude petroleum, fuel items and other global commodities, which are part of the raw materials in the WPI. Also, PMI manufacturing has been showing pressures building up from the input sides. So that is getting reflected. But you see, the base effect is very favorable for WPI, unlike for CPI, because last year, I think in January, there was significant pass-through of global commodity prices into domestic producer prices.
All right, Allahabad Bank is there slipping further, so something to keep on our radar. But away from the macros, let's shift focus to the earnings now. And Sun Pharma, that reported an inline set of earnings this quarter where the margins really came in line with the guidance of 20 to 22%. And take a look at that particular counter is in the green. Ekta Batra, my colleague, is here with the highlights of this quarter. Tell us, Ekta.
Well, it was largely an inline set of numbers for Sun Pharma this quarter, so no real surprises which came in terms of the headline figures. The revenue was down around 16% led by an over 30% year-on-year decline in the US markets because of the kind of pricing pressure as well as loss in exclusivity on a couple of drugs that they've seen. The margins came in at, in terms of the guided range, which was 20 to 22%, so it came in at around 21.8%, and the profit on an adjusted basis was also in line with expectations. The management, however, did not comment with regards to the halal inspection, but in terms of guidance, they did mention that they expect to possibly miss the FY18 guidance marginally, which was expected to be a high single-digit decline in terms of revenue. So that is something that the street took into cognizance. But at the same time, the management is quite confident in terms of the specialty portfolio, especially when it comes to their psoriasis drug under development, tildrakizumab, which is expected to probably see some amount of movement in FY19. So there was quite a mixed picture in terms of what we can expect for Sun Pharma going into FY19, but at least for the near term, it is going to be determined by what happens with halal. Let's listen in to the management.
The decline is primarily driven by the US business. All our other businesses have grown for the quarter. In line with our EBITDA margin guidance, our overall performance for Q3 reflects a gradual improvement in EBITDA margin over the first half of the year. This is despite a challenging US generic pricing environment and continued investments in building our global specialty business.
Okay, so gross margins have been under pressure for Sun Pharma, and that's the reason the stock has been down and out today. But the stock of the moment in the broader markets is Jet Airways. It's down almost 6%. It reported a weak quarter. After a long time, the EBITDA margins are under pressure. And Sonal is here to give us highlights and, what led to this big damage in the stock. Sonal, over to you.
Thanks a lot for that, Sonia. Well, costs continue to become a problem for Jet Airways. Well, in terms of the headline numbers, the revenue was up 10%, but the EBITDA, that came in flat around 543 crores. Even EBITDA, that is EBITDA before lease rentals, was flat as 963 crores, and the EBITDA margins were at 15.8% versus 17.5% same time last year. What really led to this decline is the higher cost. Well, the fuel costs went up by around 29%. Not only that, the selling and distribution expenses went up by 10%, all this leading to a profit decline of around 46%. The other reason for this profit decline was the lower other income that came in down by around 39%. But the good part was that the international business picked up this time. The revenues were up 8% year on year. This was the pain point for the company because they had been facing some demand crunch in the international markets. They do have a con call at 4 p.m. today, and I'll update you more on that. Back to you.
All right, thanks for that, Sonal. But take a look at the markets now, and they are off their high point of the day at this point, 0.8% up when it comes to Sensex and Nifty. But the bigger picture to watch out for, and the area which is a slight bit of concern, is the mid-cap index has seen a sudden slide in the last few minutes of trade, down 0.36%. The market is really shedding a large amount of gains in the last few minutes of trade, in fact, quite swiftly. And the bigger concern clearly has to be from the mid-cap universe, which is now 0.5% down. So that's something to watch out for. But let's shift focus on the deal street then. And Zealand will be acquiring about 44.5% stake in MT Educare in what could be one of the largest deals in the education sector, and in fact will add a lot of might for Zealand as a market leader. And this will be done via preferential issue of shares. One thing to watch out for definitely is that it will trigger an open offer for the shares of MT Educare at a price of 72 rupees 76 paise per share, and the stock is trading close to that particular price but slightly lower. So this is a large transaction. In fact, we earlier spoke to the seller, MT Educare, and this is what they had to say on this large transaction. Hear them out.
Zealand will be having management control. They will, of course, very much be the co-promoter. And 200 crores is the plan that we have actually estimated is we have some existing debt. So we require some funds to make sure our technology initiatives take off the way we have planned. It should add to at least around 15 to 20%, but I think we should wait and watch.
Okay, that's the word coming in from MT Educare, 15 to 20% of their revenues because of this deal. But let's get some market opinion from the street. The Federal Reserve has hiked rates 3 times last year and forecast 3 more hikes in 2018. We spoke to Tushar Pradhan, the CIO of HSBC Global AMC India, on what all this will mean for the Indian markets and other emerging markets going ahead. Listen in.
This very dramatic and sharp rise in interest rates in the US has been in a surprise for everyone. I think we all were, kind of thinking that it's going to be very gradual, and it all depended really on the Federal Reserve to signal interest rates to rise. But the market seems to have taken up the gauntlet and decided that it decides to price it before the actual action, which in one way has negated any downward movement or say an impact or a reaction to any Fed move from here on. So it's more or less taken up even 2 or 3 more interest rates hike that the Federal Reserve could have possibly taken.
All right, all eyes would be on rate hikes for the market sentiment as well. With that, it's curtains down on Business Lunch, but Mid-Cap Radar is going to take all the market action forward. Stay